Jason, since you are, you have some background in economics, and you're obviously a kind of a celebrated investor, what is your take on what's going on and what's going to happen?
From the economic perspective, I think that this is pretty dire. This is not a small event. Everybody's talked about the recovery, right? Will it be a U-shaped recovery, meaning really slow, long bottom, bad, right? Everybody's hoping it'll be a V-shaped recovery, down, then back up again. And some say an L-shape or a check mark, right? Where it's sort of like this slow upward trend, but it's upward. I think it's going to be a modified square root sign. So a square root sign, it goes like this. Now this might be reversed for, I don't know how it's coming out, but it's like this, goes down like in a V, then it comes up higher than it was before, and then a flat line, right? I think this square root sign will be, we were going along, then we went down, okay? Then we will go up, but I don't think we'll go up as high as we were. I think it'll be a lower, I think the economy is going to get smaller. I think there's been a huge shift in the mentality of people toward a simpler life. You millennials, I'm a Gen Xer, okay? I'm not a millennial since you're talking about age, right? You millennials are, really into like minimalism and things like that. And I think that trend is going to increase in size.
Basically what you're saying is that you think that the economy is going to get smaller and stay that way for some time.
Yeah, I do.
That the recovery is more of like a stabilization than anything else. And that there's not I'm of the opinion that we're not going back to normal.
Right. There's going to be a new normal.
What we expected to happen. And that's I'm hearing you say that you see the same thing.
Yeah, I definitely do. This is a very rare situation because number one, it's the first self-imposed recession or maybe depression in the world history, possibly. Okay, it's a total first. And then also, it's a situation where we're going to have this rare economic malady that historically we haven't really had in any significant way since the 70s. It's called supply-demand shock, where first the demand collapses, okay? And we've all seen that, of course. Demand has collapsed in like every sector practically, except online things like StreamYard and Zoom and Skype and all that kind of stuff. And then because all those businesses go out of business or shrink significantly, we later have supply shock. And what that leads to, at least last time historically, is stagflation, which is crappy. It's a crappy economic environment. And in that situation, we have high inflation during a time when we have high unemployment. And the term used to sort of describe that or evaluate it is called the misery index. Okay. I'm sorry I don't have better news, but I'll end on a positive.
Please keep going because I have this. There is some good news, I think, in all of this. But
there is definitely some good news. First of all, one of my favorite economists is a guy named Joseph Schumpeter, and he was famous for the concept of what's called creative destruction. And Ryan, you have taught a lot about disruptor businesses, and that's really creative destruction, right? It's the same idea. And creative destruction in capitalism, because it works so beautifully, it happens, but it happens slowly. But the pandemic has caused it to happen a lot faster. And a lot of great things are coming out of this, people really adopting online platforms. I mean, this is a sea change for the way mastermind groups operate. The mastermind groups I'm a member of, we're all meeting on Zoom. And, I like it. I mean, it's really convenient and I'm learning a ton of stuff and I'm right at home where I can implement stuff. I don't have to go anywhere or travel anywhere. So there are some great things coming out of it. As far as real estate, since I'm really a real estate investor, that's my core. I think there's going to be a massive downfall, and of course we're already seeing it. That's no surprise, in high density, expensive urban areas. LA, New York, obviously, downtown Seattle, downtown San Diego, the Austin high-rise environment. I think social distancing is going to be with us for a long time. I don't think people are going to forget this anytime soon. And I believe there's going to be this mass migration out of these high density areas into lower density suburban areas. And I'm calling for the rise of suburbia. Now, check this out. We've been researching this a lot for the pandemic investing presentation. And 84% of the United States lives in what's considered to be an urban area, okay? And there are varying degrees of that, of course, but just as an example, the US in general has a population density of about 87 people per square mile, okay? It's really low. There's a lot of great land in the US, okay? But in what's called urban areas, the density is 284 people per square mile.
I see.
In New York City, it's over 27,000 people per square mile.
Okay. Yeah.
And those are the kinds of places I think people are just going to leave in mass.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically what I'm hearing you say is, and Yasmin put the question of, so location won't matter as much. And what I'm kind of hearing you say is that there's almost like a spillover effect that happens where you have like the urban areas where there's a lot of density spills over into the other areas, which I think means
opportunity.
That you now have a higher demand on land, on space, and it's less on location because anything can be delivered. Anything can show up at your house in 2 days. The delivery industry, I think, is going to absolutely explode. The bring dinner to your home. That's now eating out. It's no longer going into a restaurant and having this long drawn out meal where you're paying somebody 20% to take your order. It's now they're bringing it to you, and that's the service that is done. And if that can be done anywhere in the world, then location doesn't matter as much. You prioritize being near the people that you love and having lots of land, building a commune together. So
like you want to do a compound.
That's right. That's right. Actually, there's one I'm eyeing right now. So
I know I saw that. That's really cool.
So that's kind of how I'm hearing you describe that. Is that what you're saying?
To some extent, yes. And back in 2012 on my podcast, I started talking about, and I made the quote, location is less meaningful than it's ever been in human history, okay? Or geography is less meaningful than it's ever been in human history. Now, it's still meaningful, I get it. But the reason I was saying that, and we both got Teslas, Ryan, and you're still driving them, I'm sure. The reason I was saying that is because of the self-driving car. That was the big shift, right?
That's right.
Because the three value drivers for real estate since the beginning of time are location, location, location. Okay, even when we lived in caves, if the cave was near, water, a stream, if it was near food sources, location mattered back then, right? And it's mattered ever since. It's been the three big drivers: location, location, location. But now location is less meaningful, and in fact, in a way, it's maybe more meaningful in that people want to be away from people. Okay. And that's the big change. So I'll leave you with this idea because I'm sure you got other people you want to bring on. Okay. There are two opposing forces, okay, in this debate. Number one, I think the economy is going to suffer greatly. It already has. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be a super quick recovery, sadly. But the opportunity on the other side for investors, real estate investors specifically, is that it's kind of a war, right? Will the bad economy on one side versus the mass migration to suburban living on the other side. And that's the kind of stuff for the last 16 years my real estate company has been helping people buy around the country, suburban properties, okay? And I think there is going to be just millions and millions of people that flee the cities. It's no longer necessary to live in these high density environments, like you pointed out, and they're going to move to suburbia. Yeah. So suburbia is coming back, baby.
I agree with you. And I have said, I don't think we're going back to normal. We're moving forward. And so where I might disagree slightly is the idea of that we're going to I think we will flatline for probably a few years, but our natural tendency is to move forward into something which always creates growth, which means that areas that have been neglected now have their own boom. Online platforms have their own boom. The minimalist travel, like RVs and outdoors, and like the stuff that we've been starved of as human beings, like connection and time outdoors and nature and gardening.
Right. Yeah.
Like these things are going to have a comeback.
The simpler life is what you're describing.
We're just going to move forward. Sorry, Jason?
Yeah, the simpler life is what you're describing. Yes. I completely agree with you. I think, cooking at home I think the home is becoming the center of the universe. There's going to be a lot of interest in home improvement and making the home more comfortable place to live, better place to live. And that's a big trend. But Ryan, also, it's amazing how well capitalism works. Every mastermind group I'm in, yes, it is capitalism. The 1%, the capital.
That's right.
Yeah. It's amazing how well it works. Every group I'm in, the first discussion is, how do we make the world better? How do we make it more efficient? How do we serve people more? And, just last night, we see all this disruption going on, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I got an email from my dog's veterinarian saying, download our veterinary telemedicine app on your phone. This is so great, because now I don't have to necessarily always take the dog to the vet. I can just jump on a telemedicine. Why didn't we have telemedicine 10 years ago? The technology is not new. Doctors are now using it. They're finally using this stuff that's been latent, and they're going to become so much more efficient. It's going to be very lucrative for their business, because now they still charge the same $40 for an exam. Okay. But now that the exam is done on the phone for them, it's really fast and it's easy. They don't have to pay for a bunch of real estate. The veterinarian can now be home based at least part of the time, have a smaller office, a smaller staff. They're going to become more profitable. Everybody's learning how to be more profitable and more efficient using tech. And that's a great thing. That's going to keep us going forward, and it's going to last. That's going to be a good, positive thing.
Absolutely. And I was just thinking about shopping centers. Our shopping center is really going to be around in a few years when you've got, what is the reason now that you need to go into a store and walk around and shop when you have an app and you don't want to be around people and you say, I want this, this, and this, and someone brings it to your house? Totally. So we're going to have distribution centers instead of retail centers, which means that we free up a whole lot of real estate because those office complexes just got smaller. That retail space just got smaller. Yeah. However, Jason, what's going to happen to HighRises?
HighRises, the two danger zones, and this is what I cover in the presentation, are elevators and mass transit. Okay. Those are the most dangerous environments to be in if you're concerned about someone sneezing or coughing, right?
Yeah.
And we did research on this, and we found that anything that's above 5 stories and above is considered mid-rise. 12 stories and above is considered high-rise. For apartments and condos, there are, and don't quote me on the numbers because my presentation is not in front of me, but back of the napkin math, there's about 3.5 million of those units, okay? And that is a giant number of potential movers. If just 15% of those people move, you push a demand of something like 20 million units into suburbia. A huge boom for suburban real estate investors, okay? That's a big deal. Spread that around 50 markets, and that's a lot of new demand when we were already in a housing shortage. And so it's a big deal. And not only that, with remote work, if you look at roommates, for example, and the latest data I have, we didn't dive too deeply into this yet, but this is one of the 6 trends I identify in the presentation, is roommates. In 2012, 32% of households had people in some sort of non-romantic co-living relationship, okay? Where they're basically roommates. So take this example. You have 2 roommates, they're both professionals, right? Where they can remote work, right? Because information workers can do that, okay? And by the way, income inequality. You did an awesome show on that. And this is going to increase the inequality. And I'm not debating the political side of whether we believe it exists or not. I'm just saying the digital workers are getting ahead. That's all your audience, right?
Mhm.
And people that have to work at some place in person, coming in contact with other people, sadly, are suffering greatly. So there's got to be.
But their wages are going to go up naturally now, because there's going to be more demand for things like delivery and all this, which means that there's going to be an increased price on low wage.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think that problem just normalizes over time.
True, and those people will, retool and switch jobs, but initially during that switch period is when it hurts. Okay. So the other trend, the roommates, let me give you that example. Say you got two people living in a 2-bedroom place, sharing it as roommates, right? And they're both digital workers or knowledge workers that can work remotely. So what do? One says to the other, hey, Ryan, I need that spare bedroom for my home office. And then Ryan says, Jason, I agree. I need a spare bedroom for my home office. One of us has to move. So now you've literally doubled the demand for housing. Okay. Think of how significant that is. Then you take people that are not going to gyms and need an extra room for a gym.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So, I mean, this is huge. It makes the home the center of the universe, and the size of the home there's going to be a push to increase it.
I agree.
Now, it gets a lot worse if you have a family of 4. You got a couple, 2 kids, okay? And now the kids are learning at home, okay? So they're homeschooling and they need more space. And, both parents need more space where they can work. So you literally need to expand the size of that home for more workspace. And the retail apocalypse you referred to has been going on for well over a decade.
Yeah.
It's going to get worse, obviously a lot faster now. And same with office space. Carl Icahn, the big corporate raider we've all heard of, is shorting commercial real estate like crazy. And, it's all about housing.
I agree with you. I think you're going to have a return of connection, family, and community, because we have to. And so the the stage after that will be communities being somewhat self-sustaining.
Yep.
So we are going more micro and more intimate, if you will, and that's just the natural order of things. And there's going to be a short-term restructuring of everything. And Jason, tell me if you agree with this. We'll get through it faster if the government stays the hell away from it. Stop trying to keep it the way it is. Let it adjust. Let things move forward.
Yeah. The way the government solves problems is, okay, there's the Great Recession 10, 12 years ago, right? There's a fire. What the government does, instead of throwing water on it, they throw gasoline by printing more fake money. And that's obviously got a zillion problems we don't have time to discuss. But the government and the Federal Reserve always want to jump in and do their central planning, number 1, to gain more control, but number 2, because there's like no tolerance for pain anymore, and the market will sort itself out. Just, it's like, when you're, when you're just sick with a regular flu, okay, I'm not talking about coronavirus, okay, but when you're sick with a regular flu, what do you got to do? You've got to just stop in your tracks. You got to go to bed. You got to, sleep, recover. And your body needs to strengthen. You got to take maybe some bad tasting medicine and you'll get over it. But, what the government does and the Federal Reserve, because they're both in tandem, right, is they just prolong the problem and turn everything into like this zombie, weaker economy, okay, because of their distortions and their interferences. One of the key things you need in economics is something called price discovery. And the stock market can't have price discovery because the government or the Federal Reserve is now going in there. They've already gone into the bond market. Now they're going into the stock market and they're literally buying stock. It's insane. That totally misrepresents the market price. And every regular investor in the market should have the right to sue them for distorting the market and pumping up stock prices artificially. It's a scam, yes, but it's worse than that. It's just ridiculous.